It's alive. Oh, it's alive. It's alive. It's alive. It's alive. Oh, in the name of God. Now I know what it feels like to be God.
Hello, friends and fiends. Welcome to another edition of Blood and Guts presents Creature Features. Tonight we got a good one for you. We got the classic Fright Night. And with me as always is Matt, my partner in Frights, and you are the Fright Night Wizard, so we're going to let you kick this one off. Let's talk about this classic 1980s just awesomeness.
Absolutely, I'm thrilled to be talking about Fright Night. It's one of my favorite vampire movies of all time. It's a movie, if you haven't seen it, drop everything you're doing right now, go pick it up. I mean, it's streaming. You can get it through Blu-ray, DVD. Like I said, it's just one of the greatest vampire movies of all time, bar none.
I agree.
But the movie came out in 1985. It was directed by Tom Holland, and if that name sounds familiar, it's not Spider-Man. It's the great horror director Tom Holland, who's also gave us classics such as Child's Play. He wrote the script for Psycho 2 that brought Anthony Perkins back to the role of Norman Bates. So that was a pretty big deal at the time when that happened.
Oh, yeah.
But this movie itself, it was made in 1985. It was our birth year. It's one of the first few horror movies I actually watched growing up. One of the first ones I remembered. I actually had it on a VHS tape along with Silver Bullet. And so, like I said, I could talk about this movie all day. But one of the great things then to start off with, Tom Holland obviously had the idea of Fright Night. And he said the idea came to him. He actually thought about the movie Rear Window, which is kind of where it's based at, where you got Charlie Brewster, the neighbor, seeing his neighbor, the vampire, murdering people in the middle of the night. And nobody believes him.
Yeah.
It's like the boy that cries wolf because they all know.
Jim Stewart, nobody's going to believe me. You know.
They know that he loves horror movies, loves Fright Night, the TV show that's on in the movie with the great Peter Vincent. And so it's a great premise to begin with, and the reason Tom Holland come up with it, he said that at the time vampires were kind of passe, like they were being made fun of. Like you had the movie Love at First Bite, which is a great movie, but nobody was really taking them serious as like a horror icon. He really wanted to bring the Fanes back to vampires.
Sure, yeah, and it's just a classic. I mean, you got to look at this cast, you know. Roddy McDowell,
William Ragsdale, John
Sarandon
Stark,
in there,
Chris Sarandon, yes sir,
and who is a classically trained stage performer as well. So he's no stranger to effects, makeup, and all that goes into the character performances, and adding his own little flair in there as well. Peppered through as we go. You'll learn more about that, but. Yeah, just a great classic for you.
Like you said, you hit the nail on the head. Like the cast, they're all perfect. Like if you ever get a chance to watch the documentary "You're So Cool, Brewster," William Ragsdale, he talks about the audition process he went through, and like I said, every one of them had to go through it. And one thing Tom Holland done was he made them all write their own backstories of what happened before the movie and how they got to where they are. So that way they were all deeply connected to their character and had more investment in the character. And fun trivia on that one, they said the only one that really had a hard time doing that for was Stephen Jeffries, who played Evil Ed.
Yep.
He said he wanted no part in writing that story. He just thought he could wing it. And he said he got a call that night from his agent. It's like, Stephen, Tom's worried about your commitment to this film. He's like, he knew then, well, I guess I better write that backstory or I'm going to get fired.
And I had heard a rumor, too, where at one point the studios wanting to cast, like, Charlie Sheen as the lead. But, they said, Charlie Sheen, he's your hero, your anti-hero type of character. But, Ragsdale is your...
boy next door.
Yeah, he's your boy next door type. Whereas you're going to see... Charlie Sheen coming as your hero. He's okay, so he's definitely going to become victorious in the end. So,
absolutely, and like as a good thing, like Tom Holland, he actually said like you're talking about, he fought against the studio. He didn't even want to audition Charlie Sheen because he's like, you're too pretty for this role. We want somebody that's a boy next door that's kind of an unknown. Like he still wasn't very famous at the time, but like he was up and coming.
Right.
But just to continue with the story, it's just a fantastic story. Like as we kind of allude to, how nobody would believe Charlie. So the one person he tries to turn to then is the great Peter Vincent, Roddy McDowell. the TV show host that he watches every night. And of course, Roddy McDowall thinks he's Looney Tunes when he comes up to him and tells him he has
he's
a
a
vampire.
washed-up actor. He's like been playing the same role for 20, 30, 40 years, something like that. And he's just kind of like, yeah, my boy, it's not real.
Yeah,
it's all showbiz.
What's great about that too is like when they have like the classic movies that he was in before. Obviously, they filmed him for this movie. Like he had the wooden stake turned backwards when he's going to kill the vampire. So like great B movie stuff on that. And like I said, it's just a fantastic story. And talking about Peter Vincent and Charlie, that's kind of like your backbone of this movie, is like their relationship. Like Charlie, it's not mentioned what happened to his father in the movie, but he doesn't have a father. So like Peter Vincent kind of turns into that father figure.
Yes.
And I kind of think about the one scene where Charlie's pleading with him to come help him try to save Amy, because he's like, if you don't come here, Amy's going to die, me too. And Roddy McDowall, Peter Vincent, he's just a big coward. He's like, I just don't think I can do it.
Right.
And like it's just that
he kind of has to motivate him to
And it was so well written and so well acted. That scene there kind of pulls at your heartstrings on there, because you can see that he's just struggling because he wants to help, but he just don't think he can do it.
Right.
And before we move on, like one of the other great casting choices, obviously you alluded to, was Chris Sarandon. Like, he's classically trained, played in a bunch of classic movies before and after. You think about Prince Humperdinck and Princess Bride, and one don't get talked about enough though is when he played the preacher in Bordello of Blood. He always tickled me in that movie too. But
and no stranger to stage makeup, as being a classically trained stage performer as well.
Yeah,
so that takes anywhere several hours to apply. And then what was it? He was even putting on the finger appliances.
Exactly, that's what I was going to allude to.
While they were doing the facial prosthetics and the contact lenses, so on. Yeah, because
he talked about how he's sitting there doing nothing. He's like, well, can I at least work on my hand while you're working on my face?
And as I did makeup a little bit in film school when I was there myself, and I have encountered one or two actors who would offer, hey, can I do the hands? Can I do this and that while you're doing that? And trust me, you always say, yes, please. Yeah. Please take the burden off a little bit. But
take the burden off your shoulders.
Take the burden off your shoulders, exactly. Yeah.
But like I said, it's a fantastic story. Like it's so well written. It's got great special effects. But like going back to Chris Sarandon, his vampire who's been around so many like 1,000 years it was, and his motivation in the movie is Charlie's girlfriend Amy looks like a past lover of his from long ago, and so that's his motivation to try to get Amy, because he wants that long lost love that he's missed out on.
Yeah.
And one other great casting choices too is you got Stephen Jeffries playing Evil Ed, and like he's just the perfect annoying friend who's also like loves those cult horror movies too that Charlie can try to turn to. Of course, Ed thinks he's crazy as well.
Yeah. And
then rounding out, you got Jonathan Stark playing Billy Cole, which is Jerry Dandridge's right hand man.
Yeah, and then I'd seen House 2 before I had seen Fright Night. Uh-huh. So that was what threw me was you had this actor who was great comical relief in House 2. Now playing this kind of like comic relief, but sick and twisted in
dude, you hit the nail.
Fright Night, and so
you hit the nail on the head, because that scene where the detective Art Evans comes out and Jonathan Stark is trying to play like Charlie's crazy, and he knows Charlie at first can't come clean to what he sees. Right. So the detective's like, "What's down in the basement, Charlie?" He's like, "Yeah, Charlie." What's down there?
What's down there? So he's just this like sarcastic, snarky, and you almost like hate him.
Yeah.
You almost you're like, damn, I hope they get that guy. I hope they get that guy. And of course they do, but you're like, damn, I want them to get him.
And then it's amazing, like you said, because he's got that comic relief. But as soon as the detective leaves and Charlie knows the sun's going down, he happens to look back at the house, and there's Billy Cole just standing with his arms crossed and just looking down, brooding over him.
And so that's just classic. And as far as like, I know we'll touch upon this at some point, but the soundtrack to this is
amazing.
It's just 80s, like it's just like dripping 80s power guitar riffs, mixed
Brad
with
Fide-
orchestra runs. It's just so beautiful.
Brad Fidel done the music for this movie. I'm glad you brought
Yeah.
that up. And like you think about Terminator 2. He done both Fright Nights. Like he's got a great list of works that he's done throughout the 80s and early 90s. He worked with James Cameron on True Lies as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
he was always James Cameron's go-to man until he kind of quit Hollywood. He kind of got fed up with the system. And even now, he says James Cameron will call him just see if he can weed him back out. He's like, no, I'm good.
That's such a great soundtrack.
Oh, it's a fantastic soundtrack. And to round out the story, though, like spoiler alert here, like after they kill Jerry Dandridge, they actually, this is one thing Tom Holland did listen to the studio on that you find out was originally at the end they kind of wanted to copy The Howling, and where when Peter Vincent is doing his show at the very end, he reveals that he's a vampire, and kind of laughs at Charlie.
Yeah.
Through
This is what they. What does he say? This is what they look like, or something like that.
And they said the executives like, you can't do that. We come through this whole movie and we love Peter Vincent, we love Charlie.
Yeah.
You can't do that to him. And so
With the dynamic they had in part 2 as well, you're carrying over that. And I mean, it was almost set up for a sequel and another sequel.
Yeah.
And so you definitely needed your Peter Vincent character because it was such a huge bucket of wind and such a awesome
exactly.
character.
Ryan McDowell is just a special man. And when you hear the cast talk about him, they just talk about how what a loving man, a good mentor he was to everybody, and thankfully he filmed a lot of stuff behind the scenes with his own home video recorder. So we had all that footage like for that "You're So Cool, Brewster" documentary.
Oh yeah,
which is such a treat to see.
Yeah.
But moving right along, then we're talking about too is like the special effects in the movie, like they obviously there's no CGI in this movie. They usually actually recycled some props from Ghostbusters, which was made the year before.
Yep.
Which was amazing as well.
The librarian in there with the
crazy,
the librarian that they thought was too
scary
for Ghostbusters. Yeah.
But you got this great Steve Johnson who worked on this movie. Like he cut his teeth in Ghostbusters, and he wasn't. I don't think he was the head special effects guy, but he handled most of the special effects work on this.
Yeah.
And seeing like he talks about wanting to do his werewolf transformation. He talks about how when you sing The Howling and American Werewolf in London, it looked painful, but everything he said was so symmetrical and kind of done. Because he wanted his to like all of a sudden when he's changing, part of the face is down here, parts up there. It's just like a goopy mess when he's changing.
It's painful. Yeah.
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 And so that's how you get that when Evil's changing from a werewolf back into a human. And Billy Cole's death, they talk about that a lot. And what they done was they have those heat lamps, which is what melts him down. What you see that special effects, just little things like that.
So that's a lot of like what was it, Raiders?
Yes.
Yeah, Raiders with the heat lamps, all the stuff with the melting in the wax and the layers built up underneath.
Yes.
Yeah, I love it.
And then you got the stop motion of the bat. There's so many different techniques that they use throughout this movie. Just like brings it all together, and they just utilize every cent of that budget they were given, but it just adds to the charm of this movie.
And since the studio wasn't paying attention to them because they had the other bigger projects, they were like, you know what, we're going to let them do whatever they want. Mm-hmm. So they kind of got away with a little more.
Yes.
Which was awesome.
And like
because if you would have had more studio interference in this one, I'm afraid you wouldn't have gotten the piece that you got.
You hit the nail on the head. And like you said, they talked about how this was one. They thought it was going to be one of their smaller movies, so they let it go along. But it ended up being one of their biggest hits of the year, which obviously
exactly.
It was an instant classic when it came out. It's got a huge cult following now. Tom Holland still talks about he knows he can't film a movie now, but he wants to do a novelization for a Fright Night sequel, and I'm looking forward to whenever that does come out, getting my hands on that and reading that. That'll be a good read.
Yeah.
But as far as the box office goes, it made a ton of money. Back in '85, it was one of the highest horror movies of the year. But wasn't the highest because then we had Nightmare on Elm Street fame, Return of the Living Dead come out there. It was a good year for horror movies in 1985.
Yeah, 85 was a good year to cut your teeth, so to speak, into horror films.
And turned into like a semi-franchise. You had the sequel come out in 1988, and that'd be another deep dive we need to do.
Yeah, we'll do a deep
day.
dive on the sequel. The sequel is a standalone. I mean, it's just as awesome. I mean, you have your 1-2 punch, your 1-2 Roddy McDowell coming back as Peter Vincent. You got
and they don't miss a beat in that movie.
They don't miss a beat, and they're still the bumbling, like you're not getting Van Helsing in this one. You're getting like the counterpart,
Yeah.
Van Helsing's cousin
Yeah.
type of character, who's kind of fumbly and bumbly, and it's awesome.
Yeah, you speaking
So-
of that, takes me back to one of my favorite parts in the movie, like where he tries to get some courage. He's like, back, spawn of Satan, and then
Yeah.
Jerry Danger just laughs in his face, like, you gotta
Yeah.
have faith for that to work on me, man.
Yeah. And it's just that's the kind of stuff, the writing that goes into this, and the performance, and also I had read where like the contact lenses were painful,
awful.
brutal, but they were made very well done. They had a little bit of glitter on the outside
Mhm.
of the iris, so that it would kind of give that pop when
Yes.
the light reflected off of it, which is just genius from a special effects makeup
And-
standpoint.
Going back to the special effects too, like you thinking about Amy's face and that final
Oh, with the
transformation,
mouth.
and they actually were irritated at the end because they said they made that face they were hoping it would just be like 2 shots is what they said.
Yeah, they said they had to be minimal.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it ended up being the final 10 minutes of the movie. And not only that, it ended up being the poster art for the
The
movie.
poster,
He
yep.
said when he seen the poster art, the special effects guy was just furious because he didn't think it was going to work.
Well,
But-
because the prosthetic would only last for so long before you
Right.
had to go reapply and redo all the stuff
Uh-huh.
and get it right again. Which you think about, you're doing that every 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So that's why I said it has to be very minimal. Has to be used very minimally. Okay, sure, we can do that.
So, and going back to the franchise piece too, that had a remake, which was a decent remake as far as remakes go. I still wish they would have left it alone, just because the one thing they didn't get right, in my opinion,
I personally don't care for the remake, but
that's it. David Tennant. I love David
love
Tennant as
David
an actor,
Tennant.
but
I love him as the Doctor. I love him.
But the Peter Vincent, I thought was done all wrong in that one. Like, to me, because
Yeah.
that's your backbone for this movie, and that to me that's what's missing in the remake.
Right, yeah,
But-
and then have him being more of like a David Blaine kind of
Yeah.
magician, failed like not a wizard, but like a magician kind of character.
Right.
I just didn't care for that, but that's a
Yeah, that's a whole nother story. But
a whole nother
then
can
they
of
had
worms.
another semi remake, but they called it a Fright Night 2 that came after that, which was just abysmal. That was hard.
Yeah, I didn't even give that one a chance.
Well, you're not missing nothing on that. But,
Yeah, I don't lose sleep on that one. So
But that's it in a nutshell, boys and girls. Like I said, as you can see, this is a movie that we're very passionate about. If you haven't seen
yeah.
it, you really need to drop.
you need to do yourself a favor. Get your best girl, get your best
Yes.
guy, get your best friends, get whoever you got to get. Get some popcorn, some beer, some chips, and
Yeah.
just sit down with this beast. Turn the lights off, turn the sound up, and go to town on this one. Because
Absolutely. And trust me, if you'll thank us after you watch it if you hadn't seen
oh
it.
yeah,
But if you have seen it and you love it, let us know in the comments.
yeah. What's your favorite scenes?
yes.
Yeah.
What's your favorite scenes? What brings you back to this movie? And then make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends about this movie. Tell your friends about this channel.
Yeah, totally. And as always, folks, stay tuned. We'll be bringing you some more creature features. Some more creature features.